Morning.
Yes, a very good morning to all. As you know, we are going through the chapter number 22, Chemical Coordination and Integration. We are discussing about various endocrine glands. The last one which we discussed, that was about the adrenal gland, pad glands at the anterior end of each kidney, one. They are internally divisible into two parts, histologically rather. They are divisible into two parts. The Just a minute, I'll show you the pic and go through. Yes, the outer portion called as cortex region. It has been derived from mesoderm and it produces the steroidal hormones which are called as corticosteroids. Inner portion is called medulla, originated from ectoderm, produces biogenic amines, also called as catecholamines. In a last lecture, we had discussed about medulla. Today, we're going to talk about hormones secreted from cortex. Before we go in detail of the hormones action, those which are secreted from the cortex, let's get the idea about the regions of this cortical part of the adrenal gland. You see, this entire portion, cortex, of course, inner to this there will be on inner side there will be medulla, but outer is cortex. This cortex portion is clearly divisible into three regions: the zona glomerulosa, the zona fasciculata, and the zona reticularis. Of course, this one is a medulla. So you can imagine the outer cortex is divisible into three parts: zona glomerulosa, zona fasciculata, zona reticularis, and then this is the medulla region. First of all, are you clear with this kind of setup, internal arrangement of the zona, where various zones within the cortex, adrenal cortex? So, as I said earlier, that there are two parts. One is a cortex, another one is a medulla. Cortex further divisible into outer zona glomerulosa, middle zona fasciculata, and inner zona reticularis. Like that, you have to understand. Each part secretes a specific set of hormones. For example, zona glomerulosa secretes steroids, which are mainly concerned with osmoregulation. One of them, aldosterone. So we call it as the mineralocorticoids. जो mineralocorticoids, steroids which are secreted from cortex are called corticoids. Those which are concerned with the mineral balance are mineralocorticoids. And one of the example of the same is aldosterone. Second region, the zona fasciculata. Zona fasciculata secretes glucocorticoids, those which are mainly concerned with carbohydrate metabolism. You see, steroids which are secreted from cortex should be called corticosteroids. Particularly concerned with the carbohydrate metabolism should be called as glucocorticoids. cortisol, cortisone, etc. are example of the same. Third one, zona reticularis. This region and certain part of even fasciculata collectively secrete what is called as sex corticoids. Steroids secreted from cortex should be called corticoids. Those which are concerned with the sexual characters of the individual are known as sex corticoids. Example, in male, they are called androgens, just a testosterone, etc. In female, they are estrogens, and estrogen is the main one, and progesterone is another one. So that is the profile of this three distinct regions within the cortex: glomerulosa, fasciculata, and radicularis. One by one, we're going to talk about each set of hormones, starting with the first in the sequence is this one. The middle layer, the zona fasciculata, secretes glucocorticoids. These are the corticoids which are involved in carbohydrate metabolism. Their examples include the cortisol, cortisone, corticosterone, etc. They stimulate gluconeogenesis. Does anyone know what is gluconeogenesis? Already it has been taught. Chapter number 14, Cori cycle. What is gluconeogenesis? Any idea? Galau, Jugal, Zanil. गर्ल्स में कोई अगर ट्राई करना चाहे तो yes, Zanil is very close to that. Conversion of organic compounds into sugar. Conversion of organic compound in the sugar. Yes, Rishi, correct. Glucose formation from non-sugar compounds, organic compounds. It's called gluconeogenesis. Other thing which they stimulate are lipolysis and proteolysis. May I know which other hormones are concerned with lipolysis and proteolysis stimulation? Breakdown of lipid and breakdown of protein. Which other hormones are concerned with the same? Oh, come on. What is this? See this one. Epinephrine or epinephrine. कल तो पढ़ाया मैंने आपको. क्या कर रहे हो? Remember glycogenolysis, lipolysis, and proteolysis? Remember or not? Inhibit the cellular uptake and utilization of amino acids. Inhibits, stops the cells from picking up the amino acids. ऐसा प्रोटीन है उसको ब्रेक करो और उसमें से अमाइनो एसिड रिलीज करो and stop the cells from picking up this amino acid. Cortisol, basically it's a catabolic hormone which is promoting catabolism. Remaining effects, it is involved in maintaining the cardiovascular system as well as kidney functions, heart functioning, the cardiovascular functioning. It will require cortisol. Cortisol stimulates RBC production, erythropoiesis. Look, you get now three of them. Can you name three of them which are concerned with erythropoiesis? Oh God. From kidneys, erythropoietin, from thyroid, thyroxine, and from the adrenal gland, the cortisol. They stimulate the erythropoiesis. Cortisol is given as anti-inflammatory substance in the inflammatory reactions and in suppression of immune system. Suppression of immune system. Look, our immune system mainly produces antibodies and removes the antigens. Those which do not belong to our body are antigenic molecules. I have already explained to you. In removal of this, antibodies are to be produced in a normal function. But in two different conditions, one of them, for example, if we have an organ transplantation, our foreign organ will be, foreign organ means organ donated by some other donor. For the patient's body, that organ is a foreign organ. It will be rejected by the patient's immune system. To stop that rejection, patient who has undergone the organ transplantation is been introduced with cortisol. Cortisol will suppress the immune system, and transplanted organ rejection can be avoided over there. So there the cortisol is utilizable. Second, autoimmune disorders where inflammation takes place at joints and some other places, because your immune system wrongly starts damaging your own body components. At that time, to suppress the immune system action, what is being introduced in the system, in the patient's body? Again, the cortisol. So particularly at the time of preventing the organ transplanted organ rejection, and second is in suppression of immune action in a hypersensitivity and in a autoimmunity, the cortisol is utilizable. Can you name three diseases which can be caused by autoimmunity? One, though, I have taught in a last lecture itself. Three disorders which can be caused by the autoimmunity. My goodness. आर्थराइटिस में पढ़ाया था, रूमेटॉइड आर्थराइटिस, मास्थीनिया ग्रेविस स्केलेटल सिस्टम में पढ़ाया था, लास्ट पढ़ाया था टाइप 1 डायबिटीज autoimmunity damaging the beta cells. I guess again you are going back to your original form, that is to have no form. Don't do that. Your improved version, come back to that original. I mean, not that original one, the new improved version, that is a better one. आप गलत कर रहे हो. Coming back to the first outer part, zona glomerulosa, which secretes corticosteroids, which are concerned with the balance of water and electrolytes in our body. Classic example of such hormone is aldosterone. The functions: aldosterone acts mainly at the renal tubules. I think aldosterone is something which I will not explain, as lot of information has been given by Kushali ma'am in that excretory system related chapter. So I think it will be a wastage of time. I'll just go through. It will act on renal tubules to stimulate reabsorption of sodium and water and passing out of K plus and phosphate ion. On one hand, it will absorb Na plus, and on the other hand, it will give away its K plus. Also will absorb water and will help in removal of phosphorus. Phosphate ion. Phosphorus in the form of phosphate ion. Basically, these things are concerned with the electrolyte balance in body, that is ionic balance, balance of body fluid volume, You need a certain amount of water in the body. Then osmotic pressure and blood pressure. All these are interrelated aspects. They are maintained by mineralocorticoids. Last but not least, the sex corticoids. Steroids secreted from cortex concerned with you know sexual characteristics of the organism. Partly these sex corticoids are secreted from fasciculata, but main source of theirs is reticularis portion of cortex. This includes androgens, estrogens, and progesterone. By the way, in the body of the individual, if there is a male person, in a male member, testes shall produce androgens, whereas the same person's cortex will produce androgens and small amount of estrogen, progesterone also. Opposite to that, if a female body is there, the ovaries are going to produce estrogen and progesterone, but the cortex portion will produce small amount of testosterone and also supplementary amount of estrogen and progesterone. तो याद रखना, सेक्स स्टीरॉइड्स का दो सोर्स है बॉडी में. एक टेस्टिस ऑब्लिक ओवरीज, मेल में टेस्टिस एंड फीमेल में ओवरीज, और दूसरा है कॉर्टेक्स, एड्रिनल कॉर्टेक्स. ऐसा जो मेन सोर्स में से आते हैं उनकी अमाउंट ज्यादा है. टेस्टिस में अगर आता है तो वो मेजर पार्ट ऑफ टेस्टोस्टेरोन एंड्रोजेंस शुड कम फ्रॉम टेस्टिस. सप्लीमेंट्री अमाउंट शुड कम फ्रॉम कॉर्टेक्स पार्ट, एड्रिनल कॉर्टेक्स. और अगर फीमेल बॉडी है तो मेजर पार्ट ऑफ एस्ट्रोजन प्रोजेस्टेरोन शुड कम फ्रॉम ओवरीज. Supplementary amount should come from adrenal cortex. I hope you have understood it. If you have not, you may raise your hand and ask the question. I will welcome that. Okay, fine. You have understood the same. Now, please understand that in a individual, whether it's a male or a female, there are two sets of sexual characters, primary and secondary. Since birth, we have certain characters which determine our sex, our gender. जैसे मेल में पेनिस का होना, टेस्टिस का होना, ये सब प्राइमरी कैरेक्टर्स है मेल के. बट ये मेल जब मैच्योर होता है 14 इयर्स प्लस, प्यूबर्टी सेट ऑन होता है, तो उसमें सेकेंडरी सेक्सुअल कैरेक्टर्स एस्टेब्लिश होते हैं, such as facial hair, beard and mustaches, such as hairs around the genital organs, that is called pubic hair, hairs in the armpits, in the chest region. So these are the secondary sexual characters. Also the change in the voice, male का voice भी थोड़ा heavy हो जाता है, masculine body होता है, body becomes a bit more masculine. एक छोटा बच्चा हो, चाइल्ड मेल हो, या उसके कंपेयर में मेल एडल्ट हो, तो आपको मस्क्यूलेचर दिखता है. तो having the masculine body, having the heavy voice, having the hair all over the body, extra hair than the normal one, these are the secondary sexual characteristics of male individual. And for this, it is the androgens are responsible, mainly coming from testes and partly coming supplementarily coming from ovaries. जैसे 80% एंड्रोजेंस का सप्लाई टेस्टिस करेंगे, 20% का सप्लाई ये बाय मिस्टेक अगर मैंने ओवरी कुछ बोला गया, हाँ, the cortex part of the adrenal over here. So that was about the male member. Similarly, if you talk about the female may be at the time of birth, there are primary sexual characteristics, presence of vagina, uterus, ovaries. They are included in the primary sexual characteristics of a female. But when that female reaches to the puberty, 12 years plus age, following are the sexual characteristics, secondary sexual characteristics that are to be seen in her includes breast enlargement, menstrual cycle beginning over there, pubic hair, the hair in the armpits, the shrill voice. ये सब फीमेल का सेक्सुअल कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स होता है. Again, for this sexual characteristics at the puberty, female sex hormones are responsible. This includes estrogens and progesterone. Again, I would say that in that female, ovaries contribute up to 80% in the secretion. Remaining 20% comes from the adrenal cortex. So that is the role of sex corticoids, which are secreted from the adrenal cortex. They play the supplementary role to the main source, such as sex organs, such as testes and ovaries, respectively, rather in male and female. In providing the sex hormones, they play the additional role, supplementary role, the cortex portion. It's two zones, fasciculate and reticularis. While mainly the hormones should come from the testes or ovaries, they play the supplementary action over there. That's all about the sex corticoids. Do you have any question? I will wait for your question. I will welcome your questions. If not, then go to the next. Okay, no questions. It seems that I have no doubts. I go to the next part, the disorder part. You know, in each gland, we have been discussing about the various disorders. For example, when we talked about the pituitary, we realized that gigantism and acromegaly and dwarfism kind of problems. Then for a posterior pituitary, we discussed about the ADH deficiency, that is diabetes insipidus. When we discussed about the thyroid, we talked about goiter and myxedema and cretinism and Graves' disease kind of problems. When we discussed about the parathyroid, we talked about tetany and osteoporosis. When we talked about the thymus, reduced immunity in the older age. When we talked about the pancreas, we understood the diabetes mellitus. Now we discuss about the adrenal cortex and medulla. So let's talk about some of the disorders related to them. One of them is Addison's disease. Basically, because of the deficiency of mineralocorticoids. What's the cause of it? Deficiency of mineralocorticoids. So somehow the outer layer, zona glomerulosa, it's a secretion, mineralocorticoid, their deficiency. Okay, that will cause the Addison's disease. The symptoms include ionic balance, weakness, weight loss, vomiting, nausea, and diarrhea. Vomiting, nausea, and diarrhea are also its other symptoms. So once again, I repeat, person suffering from deficiency of mineralocorticoids is said to suffer from Addison's disease. Will have an ionic imbalance in the body because mineralocorticoids are concerned with ionic balance. Subsequently, the weakness will be there, weight loss will be there, vomiting, nausea, diarrhea, etc. will be the problems. Second is Cushing's syndrome. Cushing's syndrome is because of excessive secretion of cortisol. Symptoms include high BP, obesity, and then high sugar level, hyperglycemia, that is, rise in the blood volume. These are the problems under the Cushing's syndrome, which is caused because of excessive secretion of cortisol. Hypersecretion of cortisol causes Cushing syndrome. Hyposecretion of mineralocorticoids causes Addison's disease. चलिए, कोई डाउट, कोई क्वेश्चन, कोई प्रॉब्लम? Yes, anything to ask? Well, I'm talking to you guys. You have any doubt? At least write down no, then I go to the next part.
સર
हाँ जी, बोलिए.
સર આજે નોશિયા વોમિટિંગ ને એ બધા જે સિમ્ટમ્સ છે એ જરૂરી છે કે બધા જ એક સાથે થાય એટલે કોઈ એક સિમ્ટમ હોય તો બી કહેવાય કે એને થયું છે.
See, for example, nausea, vomiting is something which can occur because of so many other reasons. So alone nausea or alone vomiting or alone diarrhea cannot be the Addison's disease. Overall weight loss, weakness, and then vomiting, nausea, diarrhea together. Because if it happens, then nausea alone नहीं होगा, उसके साथ vomiting भी होगा, उसके साथ diarrhea भी होगा. It's not one of these. It's supposed to be the combination of these symptoms that only can confirm the diagnosis of Addison's disease. Because alone diarrhea or alone vomiting and nausea can happen because of so many other problems. So अगर Addison's disease से हुआ है ये matter, तो फिर ये सब साथ में होके ही होके as a collective combined symptoms over there. Okay, चलिए आगे जाते हैं. और कोई क्वेश्चन है किसी के पास? Fine, you don't have any other thing to ask. We go to the next portion. Next is tell me what is left as the last endocrine gland. What is left in a pelvis region? Gonads. Exactly. Jugal right. Galau correct. Testes and ovaries. Gonads are the reproductive organs which produce the gametes. In a male member, it's the testes. In a female member, they are the ovaries. Apart from their primary role as a sex organ, as a gonad, to produce the gametes, they play the secondary role, and that role is known as endocrine glands. So, primarily sex organs, secondarily also playing the role of endocrine glands. Let's first talk about the testes. You see, in a male individual, there will be a pair of testes. Inside the scrotal sac, a sac-like structure hanging outside the abdominal cavity in a male individual, the one in which pair of testes are placed, that sac-like structure is called scrotal sac. As I mentioned, the primary function is to act as a sex organ, the gonad, one which is going to produce the sperms, process called spermatogenesis, very important part. And also the secondary function, that is to act as the endocrine gland which will secrete hormones. Let us first understand the internal structure of the testes, the histology part of the testes. Have I shown you this particular diagram, the testes internal structure, sectional view of the testes, isn't it? I think I have shown this thing. The one in which I must have explained to you the various components of it. So, for example, what do you call these tubular units within the testes as? What are these tubular units known as? Exactly, it's a seminiferous tubules. And what are the cells which are outside the seminiferous tubules? What are the cell clusters known as? So, region is a stromal tissue, but in that, what is there is a Leydig cells. Yes, exactly. Stromal tissue which is carrying Leydig cells. What's another name of these cells? Interstitial cells, isn't it? So that is the histological part. And where are the where is the spermatogenesis process taking place? In stromal tissue or in seminiferous tubules? Where exactly? Where does it occur? Exactly, Rudra. Inside the seminiferous tubule. Whereas, what is the role of Leydig cells? What's the role of Leydig cells? Yes, Jugal, bang on target. Secretion of androgens. That is the one they are meant for. Secretion of androgens, such as testosterone, dihydrotestosterone, etc. See, androgens is a group of sex steroids, male sex steroids. Chemical composition point of view, they are lipid, one form of lipid which is a steroidal lipid. They are involved in sexual characters, so they are sex steroids. They are secreted mainly in the male individual. They are called male sex steroids, group of hormones called as androgens. Testosterone is one of the most important androgen. Dihydrotestosterone is another androgen. I hope you must be clear with the concept of what are androgens and what is testosterone. Androgens is a group of male sex hormones, sex steroids. उसमें से एक मेंबर का नाम है टेस्टोस्टेरॉन. Functions. They regulate the development and maturation and functions of male accessory sex organs such as epididymis, vas deferens, seminal vesicle, prostate, and ureter, etc. Urethra, etc. The male sex organs you will study in detail in a 12th standard. It's a chapter number 3, I think. Male reproductive system and female reproductive system in detail. You got to learn about them. But basic idea you have about it, that in a male reproductive system, there are structures associated with the testes. This includes epididymis. This includes vas deferens. I can show you in the pic so that some idea you can gain regarding what we are talking about. Chapter number 3, male reproductive system. Where is it? Now here is that male reproductive system in which various components are there, such as not clearing this one. The epididymis, and vasa differentia, and seminal vesicle, and prostate gland. All these components, and even urethra, prostate, all these different components of the male reproductive system. Since even before birth, right during the developmental stages of the male fetus, their formation, and after the birth, their development and maturation till the male matures, reaches to the puberty stages. All these activities are regulated by androgens. Second function of androgens Stimulate the secondary sexual characters of a male. This includes stimulating the muscular growth. See, I told you masculine body, growth of the hair, facial hair, axillary hair, that is in armpits, pubic hair, that is around genitals, reproductive parts. Then low pitch of voice, heavy voice with a low pitch, and aggressiveness in a male individual. Now, all these are secondary sexual characters of a male which will develop after the age of 14 in a male member, and mainly because of the androgens. थर्ड, अगर आपको याद हो तो पिट्यूटरी एंटीरियर पिट्यूटरी में लर्न किया है, one of the hormone of that pituitary is FSH, along with androgens. FSH and androgens collectively stimulate the spermatogenesis. किसको याद है FSH and androgens collectively stimulate this? I don't know if I have, I can show you. No, not this one. ये वाला मैंने आपको बोला था. Look, ये FSH of anterior pituitary and androgens mainly from testes and partly from adrenal cortex. Now, together these two stimulate sperm formation in the testes. That's called spermatogenesis. That is called spermatogenesis. No, wrong number, wrong number, wrong number. The end, यहाँ पे करेक्शन है इस नोट्स में, FSH and LH नहीं होना चाहिए. LH stimulates Leydig cells to prepare androgens and secrete them. So ये गलत लिखा है, FSH के साथ होना चाहिए androgens. Coming back to the another effect of androgens, they act on CNS, central nervous system, and influence male sexual behavior, जिसको कहते हैं libido. 14 years plus age में मेल में आफ्टर प्यूबर्टी जो सेक्सुअल डिजायर, जो सेक्सुअल ड्राइव आता है, that is because the androgens stimulate the CNS, and because of that such sexual desire and sexual drive arises in a male individual. तो जो sexual behavior है, it has been controlled by the androgens. Produce anabolic effects on protein and carbohydrate metabolism. आपको अगर याद हो तो मैंने कॉर्टिकोस्टेरॉइड्स में एक टर्म यूज किया था, दे आर कैटाबॉलिक स्टेरॉइड्स. They promote proteolysis, they promote lipolysis. You see, they promote breakdown of compounds, catabolic activity. Androgens are anabolic steroids. Their utility actually promotes synthesis of more and more protein, synthesis of carbohydrates. So these are basically, you can say, anabolic kind of hormones, anabolic kind of steroids over there, which will promote synthesis of carbohydrates and protein. इसीलिए थोड़ा मस्कुलाइन बॉडी रहता है, प्रोटीन सिंथेसिस होगा, मस्कुलाइन बॉडी रहेगा, तो उसके लिए टेस्टोस्टेरोन एंड अदर्स आर रिस्पॉन्सिबल. Have you all understood the same? How many testes are present in the body of a male individual in humans? 2. In which sac they are found attached with the abdomen? Which sac carries the testes? Scrotal sac. Correct. The primary function of testes is to act as sex organ. Yes, RG and others correct. The secondary function of testes is to act as Gallo correct endocrine glands. In testes, there are tubular structures, tubular units, which are known as seminiferous tubules. Wow, 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 good. And which process they carry out? In one word, if we have to write down, the process they are concerned with is, yes, Rudra, correct, spermatogenesis, sperm formation. What about the remaining tissue found outside the seminiferous tubules? The tissue is called as which tissue? Yes, Galo, right. Stromal tissue, interstitial tissue. And specific cells which it carries are which one? Both the names. Leydig cells, yes, correct. Also known as interstitial cells, isn't it? Which hormone stimulates Leydig cells to secrete androgens? Bang on target. Galo is correct. LH is the answer. LH from anterior pituitary stimulates the Leydig cells to synthesize and release androgens. Can you name two androgens? Androgens being a group of male sex steroids. Can you name any two members under this class of hormones, androgens? Testosterone and dihydrotestosterone. That is the one. One of the primary function of this this androgens rather, would be development and maturity and function of male accessory sex organs. Which are the male accessory sex organs? Can you name some of them? Whose formation, whose maturity development is under the control of androgens? ऐसे male sex organs का list दे सकते हैं आप. Oh, you have not paid attention. That is reflected. Epididymis, vas deferens, seminal vesicle, and prostate gland. Some of the sexual, if you can note down about the list of secondary sexual characters which develop in the male because of androgens at the puberty stages in a male. Can you analyze those? Masculine body, facial and axillary hair, pubic hair, aggressiveness, low pitch voice, etc. Combi of which two hormones promote seminiferous tubules to stimulate seminiferous tubules to carry out spermatogenesis? Combi of which two hormones stimulates it? Rudra is right, FSH and androgens. Which system is stimulated by androgens so that the human sexual behavior is affected over there? CNS. Jugal is right. And which type of activities in metabolism are promoted by the androgens? Specify that. Anabolic one, isn't it? Protein anabolism and carbohydrate anabolism is something promoted by these hormones, androgens. there. Well, it's a 10:30. Break for a few minutes and then we will resume our work. Okay? किसी को डाउट है टेस्टिस पार्ट में तो पूछ सकते हो. So it seems you have no questions and doubts regarding the same. We meet after the 5-6 minutes break. See you then. Great. So let's start the next topic. The female sex organs or gonads called ovaries. See, in a female individual, pair of ovaries are located in abdominal region. They are the primary sex organs. They are supposed to carry out oogenesis and produce ovum once in a month, one ovum per month. But apart from that, the secondary function they perform is to secrete the sex hormones, mainly estrogens and progesterone. The internal structure, if you see in ovaries, you can see that there are two components apparent over there. The follicles, the structures which are called as ovarian follicles, and rest of the region between these follicles is a stromal tissue. Remember, the stromal tissue and the follicles together constitute the histology of this ovaries. I think I have mentioned about the entire cycle. Have I or not? If you remember, FSH in a female stimulates one of the follicle out of so many to develop itself from primary to secondary to tertiary to Graphian. Within 14 days, this journey is accomplished. Nearly on the 14th day, the mature Graphian follicle bursts open, releases the ovum. This is called ovulation. And then the remaining content is converted into a mass called as corpus luteum. If the fertilization has not taken place of this ovum, then this corpus luteum shall degrade, degenerate, and will be left behind as a small scar. In next 14 days since the ovulation, this journey is also getting completed, and a cycle worth 28 days known as ovarian cycle, it gets accomplished. Do you remember this stuff? Yes or no? 50 students, 50 answers are needed. I must know that you are clear or not with this. कोई भी ऐसा बच्चा है जिसको ये क्लैरिटी नहीं है तो let me know. Is there any single student who is not clear? Please let me know. I can explain again also. Fine, it seems that most of you are comfortable with this. You are aware about this. You have the knowledge of this. I go forward. Can you tell me, out of these follicles, which ones will be the source of estrogens? मैंने आपको बोला था कि 28 डेज के साइकिल में ओव्यूलेशन से पहले एक हार्मोन सीक्रेट होता है और दूसरा ओव्यूलेशन के बाद उसका लेवल राइज होता है. तो ऐसा दो पार्ट में डिवाइड करके बोला था. Pre-ovulatory phase of the cycle, ovarian cycle, and post-ovulatory phase of the ovarian cycle. Growing follicles are the source of estrogens. What's the source of progesterone? What's the source of progesterone? Corpus luteum is the correct answer as usual. Galo and Jugal kind of students actively participating. Also Afias, Anil, Rudra, and many more. So you always remember this thing that yes, ovaries do produce the two sex hormones, but it is the ovarian follicles, and specifically in the first half of the ovarian cycle before ovulation, it is the growing follicles which will be the main source of estrogen, and it is after the ovulation the corpus luteum that will become the main source of progesterone. This much you must remember. The way the androgens are a class of male sex steroids, including testosterone, dihydrotestosterone, etc. The female sex steroids include androgens or estrogens, my mistake, estrogens. One of them estrone, estrol, estradiol, etc. ये सब collectively estrogens के नाम से identified. Now, first of all, we shall see the effects of estrogens, and then we will see the effects of progesterone. First one, estrogens. See, जैसा मेल में एंड्रोजेंस का रोल होता है, parallel role is there of estrogens in a female. As a male में accessory organs development maturity formation maturity development needed androgens, तो फीमेल के एक्सेसरी सेक्स ऑर्गन्स जैसे ये यूट्राइन ट्यूब है, या फिर बोल सकते हो फैलोपियन ट्यूब, या ओविडक्ट्स बोल सकते हो, फिर यूट्रस है, फिर वजाइना है. These accessory sex organs, their formation even before the female is born, during the 9 months of developmental journey, their formation in the female fetus, and after the birth of that female till she matures, the maturation and development of these organs is under the influence of androgens. My mistake, estrogens. Sorry, mixing up ho raha hai. Then comes development of growing ovarian follicle. मैंने आपको explain किया था कि it is the FSH which will play the lead role in stimulating the follicle in converting itself from primary to secondary to tertiary to Graafian. Basically, maturation of follicle takes place because of FSH. But as FSH starts stimulation and follicle is growing into primary, soon it will start secretion of estrogen. जैसे जैसे वो secondary में या tertiary में या Graafian में convert होता जाएगा, it will start secreting the estrogens. These estrogen along with FSH, जैसे वो मेल में था ना FSH and androgens promoting the spermatogenesis, female में FSH and estrogens they will promote oogenesis. फिर एक और हमने देखा था कि मेल के सेकेंडरी सेक्सुअल कैरेक्टर्स के लिए एंड्रोजेंस रिस्पॉन्सिबल है. फीमेल सेकेंडरी सेक्सुअल कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स आर आल्सो बिकॉज ऑफ द एस्ट्रोजेंस, फीमेल सेक्स हार्मोन. जैसे मैंने आपको एक्सप्लेन किया था, mammary gland development, breast enlargement. Second, hair on the body, particularly pubic and axial hair. Then high pitch voice, shrill high pitch voice of a female, sharp voice. Then menstrual cycle beginning over there. These kind of secondary sexual characteristics are stimulated because of the estrogens over there. Last, again the way male sex hormone androgens have effect on CNS to induce sexual behavior of a male. In a female, estrogens stimulate CNS and are also responsible for sexual behavior of a female. The sexual desire, the sexual drive, the sexual behavior of a female is governed by estrogen effect on the CNS. So I can't say the similar role because androgens promote spermatogenesis, though estrogens promote what? Oogenesis. So I can't call this as a similar role. I should call it as I said earlier about it. These are the parallel roles which are played by these two hormones. जो मेल में एंड्रोजेंस करते हैं पैरेलली फीमेल में उसी टाइप के जो पैरेलल इफेक्ट्स होते हैं फीमेल के रिक्वायरमेंट के दे आर डन बाय द एस्ट्रोजेंस इन अ फीमेल. चलिए 15 seconds given to ask a question if you have any. You see, this chapter is very important from 12th standard perspective. No other chapter is as much important as this one is, because so many topics of the same will be important in a 12th standard. At least 3-4 positions पे मैं आपको बोलूंगा कि ये हमने लर्न किया था 11 में, ये लर्न किया था 11 में. चलो, nobody is raising hand, no question, we go to the next. Progesterone. अगेन एक्चुअली प्रोजेस्टोजेंस करके एक ग्रुप ऑफ हार्मोन है, उसमें से मेन हार्मोन का नेम है प्रोजेस्टेरॉन. इसको इसके दो दो टर्म्स में से बना है. प्रोजेस्टेरॉन, जेस्टेशन इज द टर्म फॉर प्रेगनेंसी. प्रो इज समथिंग विच इज इन फेवर ऑफ, जैसे मैं ऐसा बोलूं कि प्रो डेमोक्रेसी मीन्स आई एम इन द फेवर ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी. Pro dictatorship means I am in the favor of dictatorship. So pro term is for something which you are in favor of. So when I say progesterone, it's about the one which is in favor of, which is responsible for pregnancy related aspects. इसको कहते हैं प्रोजेस्टेरॉन. जैसे it supports implantation. इसका क्या मीनिंग हुआ? अगर फीमेल में oogenesis ओव्यूलेशन के टाइम पे जो ओवम रिलीज हुआ, if that ovum comes in contact with the sperm and gets fertilized, then it will become zygote, and that zygote will turn into an embryo, and that embryo will descend down and settle in uterus and will get implanted in uterus. देखिए ये वाला मैं बोल रहा हूं आपको. यहाँ पे ओवरी में से रिलीज हुआ ओवम, फर्टिलाइजेशन हुआ, वो जाइगोट बना, वो जाइगोट यूट्रस में आके वॉल में इम्प्लांट हो रहा है. दिस इम्प्लांटेशन इज बीन सपोर्टेड बाय प्रोजेस्टेरॉन. प्रोजेस्टेरॉन की वजह से ये इम्प्लांट हो सकता है, वरना प्रोजेस्टेरॉन लो हो जाए तो इम्प्लांटेशन ही पॉसिबल नहीं है. अच्छा, इम्प्लांटेशन के बाद यहाँ पे प्लेसेंटा डेवलप होने वाला. आफ्टर इम्प्लांटेशन हियर प्लेसेंटा विल डेवलप, a tissue which will connect embryo and the wall of uterus. I'll show you in the another picture also. Have a look. Placenta. एक साइड पे फीटस होगा यहाँ पे, और दूसरी साइड पे मदर का यूट्रस का वॉल है, और इन बिटवीन ये जो स्ट्रक्चर डेवलप होता है, दैट इज कॉल्ड एज अ प्लासेंटा टिश्यू, द वन which is connecting the mother and the developing fetus over there. This placenta development, this placenta development, I don't know if I have another pic for the same. ये है placenta tissue where mother uterine wall is connected to the baby. This placenta development is also because of progesterone. Then later on, the development of embryo, and after few weeks it will be called as a fetus. 9 months journey में first few weeks it is called embryo and later it is called as a fetus. Its development is also supported by the progesterone. देखो बेबी एम्ब्रियो का इम्प्लांट कराना, फिर उसका प्लेसेंटा फॉर्मेशन कराना, और उस एम्ब्रियो का और बाद में फिटस का डेवलपमेंट कराना, ये सब एक्टिविटीज किससे कंट्रोल होता है? प्रोजेस्टेरॉन. Also will act on the mammary glands and stimulate the formation of alveoli. Basically जैसे वो प्रोलैक्टिन का रोल होता है, similar role is there of a progesterone in a particularly in a pregnant woman. Pregnant woman में progesterone and prolactin collectively stimulate the you know uh, mammary glands of the breasts, so that the growth of the breast, growth of the mammary glands and milk formation in them is stimulated over there. Last, that is, it suspends, progesterone suspends ओव्यूलेशन. ये बहुत ही क्रिटिकल पॉइंट है. इसके बेस पे एक पूरा टॉपिक है 12th स्टैंडर्ड में, चैप्टर नंबर 4 में. The progesterone will suspend ovulation and ovarian cycle and menstrual cycle. हाई प्रोजेस्टेरॉन की वजह से, जस्ट बिकॉज ऑफ हाई प्रोजेस्टेरॉन, फीमेल में ओव्यूलेशन नहीं हो सकता, ओवेरियन साइकिल नहीं हो सकता, और मेंस्ट्रुअल साइकिल नहीं हो सकता. तो आप बोलोगे कि तो सर प्रोजेस्टेरॉन तो फिर ये डिस्टर्ब करेगा सिस्टम को. ये कंडीशनल है. पता है ना, ऐसी कंडीशन जब होती है ना तो ऐसा एस्ट्रिक रखते हैं, फिर उसके बाद में लिखते हैं एस्ट्रिक के पास कंडीशनल. क्या कंडीशन है? ड्यूरिंग द प्रेगनेंसी, याद रखिए, सोचिए अगर एक फीमेल प्रेग्नेंट हो गया है, शी हैज कंसीव्ड, मींस 14 day of cycle she released ovum which got fertilized with the sperm, turned to an embryo, zygote and then embryo. An embryo came down in uterus from the fallopian tube and got implanted. This will take 7-8 days. So cycle के 21st plus or minus 2 days, क्योंकि 14 पे तो ovum release हुआ था, and remaining journey in case he fertilized, fertilization, zygote formation, embryo coming down, entering in uterus, getting implanted, उसमें 7 days और लग जाते. Those 14 plus 7 will make 21 days. साइकिल के 21st डे पे पता चल जाता है बॉडी को कि इस साइकिल में एम्ब्रियो इम्प्लांट हुआ कि नहीं हुआ, प्रेगनेंसी स्टार्ट हुआ कि नहीं. सोचो अगर प्रेगनेंसी नहीं हुआ, स्पर्म नहीं था, तो ओवम डिस्कार्ड हो जाएगा, सिग्नल जाएगा नेगेटिव, नो प्रेगनेंसी. वो कॉर्पस ल्यूटियम फिर डीजनरेट हो जाएगा एंड सिस्टम विल स्विच ओवर टू द नेक्स्ट साइकिल इन अनदर ओवरी. But socho the second possibility, that think about the second possibility, that in case if a pregnancy is there, so what signal will come to the system? Embryo already implanted. Can that body afford to have another cycle? Possible ही नहीं है, क्योंकि वो साइकिल का ओवम कब आएगा? एग्जैक्टली उस साइकिल के खत्म होने के 14 डे के बाद. और वो अगर फर्टिलाइज होता है तो वो 21 डेज पे, तो दोनों बेबीज के बीच में 21 डेज का गैप होगा. इस टाइप का गैप पॉसिबल ही नहीं है सस्टेन करना. एक साथ में 2 बेबीज पॉसिबल है, but the 2 babies which are with the distance of 21 days of inception, that is not possible. It is mandatory, compulsory कि अगर एक बेबी का डेवलपमेंट स्टार्ट हो गया है तो सिस्टम विल स्टॉप द नेक्स्ट साइकिल. सो नेक्स्ट मेंस्ट्रुअल साइकिल, नेक्स्ट ओवेरियन साइकिल, नेक्स्ट ओव्यूलेशन को होल्ड पे रखा जाए 9 months at least तक, so that for 9 months female can continue with her pregnancy and no more disturbance of ovarian cycle and ovulation and menstrual cycle in between. इसीलिए तो menstruation नहीं होता है pregnant woman में, और इसको कहते हैं gestational amenorrhea. Not to have a menstruation is amenorrhea. Gestational amenorrhea is the amenorrhea during the pregnancy. तो ये वाले फंक्शंस प्रोजेस्टेरोन तब करता है जब प्रेगनेंसी हो, तब, अदरवाइज नहीं. सो जो फीमेल वाज नॉट प्रेग्नेंट दिस साइकिल, तो फिर ये प्रोजेस्टेरोन की ये वाली इफेक्ट नहीं होगी. दैट टाइम प्रोजेस्टेरोन विल नॉट स्टॉप द नेक्स्ट साइकिल, नेक्स्ट menstruation and next ovulation over there. Have you understood the meaning of this conditional function effect of progesterone? See, these points are very complex, complicated. I strongly recommend today's lecture as and when you receive in a recorded form. Please go through it again. This chapter, this particular portion is very, very important from 12th standard point of view. 5 ऐसे पॉइंट्स मिलेंगे जहां पे मैं आपको बोलूंगा कि आपने ये लर्न किया है चैप्टर नंबर 22 11th स्टैंडर्ड में. सो मेरा आपसे रिक्वेस्ट है, हम्बल रिक्वेस्ट, आपसे सजेशन है, प्लीज आप इस चैप्टर को अच्छे से प्रिपेयर करें. प्लीज प्रिपेयर वेल दिस पर्टिकुलर चैप्टर. Okay, now next if we see one small topic related to the hormones chemical classification. I can take that small topic, rest things are very lengthy, I cannot go for them. मैं एक छोटा सा टॉपिक आपको एक्सप्लेन कर देता हूँ and we wind up the lecture then after. There are plenty of hormones in our body. Already you have learned about them, so many of them. अगर आपको मैं नाम से बुलाऊं और आप अगर आंसर बोल सकते हो तो अनम्यूट करके गालो.
Yes, sir.
Name the hormone secreted from pineal.
Sir, secreted from
Pineal gland.
the hormone was melatonin.
Melatonin. Jugal. Hormones from posterior pituitary. Released from posterior pituitary.
Yes, sir. Sir, oxytocin and ADH or vasopressin.
Wow, very good answer. Xanil.
Yes, sir.
Hormones from anterior pituitary.
Sir, prolactin, TCS, prolactin, TSH, ACTH, FSH, LH,
GH.
GH.
And one more left. Middle lobe hormone. MSH. Melanocyte stimulating hormone. Rudra.
Yes, sir.
Two groups of hormones secreted from hypothalamus. कौन से?
Yes, sir. Growth hormone and growth hormone release inhibiting hormone.
हाँ, so growth hormone नहीं, बोलिए आप. RH and RIH. RH means releasing hormone and RIH means release inhibiting hormone. Okay?
Okay,
चलिए,
sir.
जिया गामित. No. Archie. No. और कोई गर्ल्स में? श्रेया. By the way, are you all there or not? I don't know how many are there. Have you all left?
Yes, sir.
हाँ, गालो छोड़ दिया सबने?
नहीं सर, मैं तो
मैं सर क्लास में थे अभी.
Present, sir.
हाँ, सो आप लोगों को मैं बोल
प्रेजेंट
रहा हूँ,
एक्टिवली
गर्ल्स में
सर.
से कोई पार्टिसिपेट करेगा? गर्ल्स छोकरियों માંથી, गर्ल्स मीन्स छोकरियों, पार्टिसिपेशन मीन्स भाग लेશે પ્રશ્નાવલીમાં. I mean, such a simple instruction. I said girls में से somebody will participate or not. So no one is replying. So either not audible or you don't understand this English. छोड़ो. Rishi, hello, am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir. Clear.
I don't know what is then other sir. मैं चार लोगों को सुनाई देता हूँ. जुगल है, जैनिल है, रुद्र है और गालव है. ये बेचारे चार ही ऐसे हैं जो मुझे सुन सकते हैं और टॉर्चर होते. बाकी सबको जल से है.
ના સર,
ચલો.
અવાજ આવે છે તમારો.
હા, પણ તમારા લોકોનો અવાજ નથી આવતો ને, પૂછીએ છે ત્યારે. चलो एक काम करो बॉयज, जो ये चार का था उसमें से कोई और एक ट्राई करो. चलो, who will talk about parathyroid hormones?
Sir, parathyroid hormones will secrete parathyroid hormone PTH.
PTH બોલને, પેરાથોર્મોન સ્ટ્રેટ અવે. જુગલ, થાઇરોઇડ માં આયોડોથાયરોનિન્સ કયા?
હા સર. સર T4, T3 and T2. એમાં T4 થાઇરોક્સિન.
અચ્છા, અને બીજો એક એક્સ્ટ્રા અધર ધેન ધીસ થ્રી કયો છે હોર્મોન?
થાઇરોકેલ્સિટોનિન. એ
સુપર.
C cells માંથી.
યસ, ફેબ્યુલસ. નેક્સ્ટ, પેનક્રિયાસ ના હોર્મોન્સ કોણ બોલશે?
May I?
ઝેનિલ.
Sir, glucagon, insulin, somatostatin.
વેરી નાઇસ. કોણ રહ્યો? રુદ્ર.
Yes, sir.
એડ્રિનલ મેડ્યુલાના હોર્મોન્સ. રુદ્રની ગડબડ ચાલે છે આજકાલ ને રુદ્ર?
ના સર, એડ્રીનાલિન અને એપિનેફ્રિન અને નોન એપિનેફ્રિન.
એપિનેફ્રિન, નોરએપિનેફ્રિન. ઓકે. ગાલવ, થાઇમસ માંથી.
Thymosin.
કરેક્ટ. જુગલ, એડ્રિનલ કોર્ટેક્સ માંથી.
સર એટલે પેલા ત્રણેવ કહું.
હા ભાઈ, ત્રણે ઓકે.
ઝોના ગ્લોમેરુલસ માંથી મિનેરોકોર્ટિકોઇડ્સ, ઝોના
મિનરલોકોર્ટિકોઇड्स जैसे एल्डोस्टेरॉन. वेरी गुड.
aldosterone,
नेक्स्ट.
and zona fasciculata it secretes glucocorticoids
जैसे
and
cortisol, cortisone.
cortisol. And third, zona reticularis it will secrete androgens. Means sex corticoids.
Yeah, such as androgens, androgens and estrogen
Estrogen
and
and progesterone.
very good. So that was a profile of various hormones. Now these hormones are chemically, divisible into different categories. For example, peptide category, those which are made up of peptide chain of amino acids bonded by the peptide one. Then comes steroid. Then comes iodothyronines. And then comes amines. अब एक सिंपल लॉजिक है कि कैसे याद रखने का. तो I talked about nearly 10 plus 8 to 10 various endocrine glands. And collectively hormones देखोगे तो nearly 30 plus hormones है. You just need to remember that epinephrine and norepinephrine are amine hormones. T3, T4, T2, T4, T3, T2, the thyroxines, they are called iodothyronines. Cortex hormones and gonadial hormones, अब उसमें तीन ही आते हैं. Gonads में आते हैं androgens in male from testes, estrogen, progesterone in female from ovaries, and this cortex region with corticosteroid and mineralocorticoids, they all are which one? Steroidal in nature. Rest all are peptide. अब किसी को इंडिविजुअली पूछना है तो वन बाय वन. पीनियल क्या? मेलाटोनिन. यस. दिस कैटेगरी, पेप्टाइड कैटेगरी. पोस्टीरियर पिट्यूटरी का वैसोप्रेसिन एंड ऑक्सीटोसिन, अगेन पेप्टाइड में आता है. फिर पिट्यूटरी के GH, MSH, LH, FSH, ACTH, TSH, prolactin, all are in this category peptide. फिर थाइमस के थाइमोसिन, फिर थायराइड का थायरोकैल्सिटोनिन, पैराथायराइड का PTH, पेनक्रियास का ग्लूकागॉन, इंसुलिन, सोमैटोस्टेटिन. These all are ultimately peptide hormones. Simple. Some of them are made up of one polypeptide, some of them are made up of two or more polypeptides. So some are polypeptide, proteinaceous in nature, some are peptide in nature, but they all are made up of amino acid chains over there. Last one written over here, relaxin is a special hormone, which is a polypeptide hormone, and it is secreted from ovaries. Normally हमारे माइंड में है कि ovaries secrete only two hormones, estrogens and progesterone. Also secretes relaxin in a pregnant woman. तो ये याद रखना चाहिए. तो groups of hormones based on the chemical nature, four major chemical groups are there. One is a peptide group, another one is a steroid group, third is a iodothyronine, and fourth is the biogenic amine. चलो मैं पूछता हूँ, बायोजेनिक अमाइन में कौन से दो आएंगे? बायोजेनिक अमाइन कैटेगरी ऑफ
एड्रेनालिन एंड नॉन एड्रेनालिन.
एग्जैक्टली. फिर आयोडोथायरोनिन्स में कौन से तीन आएंगे?
T3, T4,
T4, T3, T.
टेट्राआयोडोथायरोनिन, ट्राइआयोडोथायरोनिन, डाइआयोडोथायरोनिन, T4, T3, T2. थायरोक्सिन उसमें T4 है. फिर स्टीरॉइड्स में फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल टेस्टिस में से
टेस्टोस्टेरोन,
testosterone,
हाँ, ओवरीज में से
Estrogen and progesterone.
एस्ट्रोजन एंड प्रोजेस्टेरोन. फिर कॉर्टेक्स में अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस हार्मोन्स, सेक्स हार्मोन्स, और कौन से दो ग्रुप्स?
Mineralocorticoids and
such as mineralocorticoids such as
aldosterone.
aldosterone,
and दूसरा ग्रुप
ग्लूकोकॉर्टिकोस्टेरॉइड्स,
glucocorticoids such as
Cortisol.
कॉर्टिसोल,
cortisol, cortisone, epicortisone, etc. ओके, ये सब स्टीरॉइड्स में आएंगे, और बाकी सब जो बचे वो किस में आएंगे?
Peptide. Polypeptide.
Peptide, polypeptide and protein collectively as a one group, chains of amino acid basically, जिसमें हाइपोथैलेमस के, एंटीरियर मिडल पोस्टीरियर पिट्यूटरी के, पीनियल के, थाइमस के, फिर थायराइड का वो TCT, पैराथायराइड का वो PTH, फिर पैनक्रियास के एंड ओवरी का वो रिलैक्सिन. ऑल ऑफ देम शुड कम अंडर द पेप्टाइड कैटेगरी. आर यू ऑल क्लियर विद द कंसेप्ट ऑफ द क्लासिफिकेशन ऑफ हार्मोन्स बेस्ड ऑन their chemical nature? ये बहुत
Yes, sir.
important part है.
Clear.
चलो, very good. The other girls like Afia, Fatima and others who were participating otherwise, Archie and Gia Gamit and other one more girl, I don't remember the name now. तो आप लोग क्यों अभी पार्टिसिपेट करना छोड़ दिया? मैडम, you can stop the recording.